I feel that the Esperance region. I use the Esperance region because I think it sounds like the most collectively advanced sector for clay rare earths. It's like your miniature Pilbara, where the boom of China 30 years ago was pretty much backed that to the hilt, whereas this new revolution that we're going through, the electrification of the world in the next 30, 50 years, decades to come, the backbone is mining, backbone is rare earths and lithium, and I think there's this play there. So if you had that as a scenario that was going to happen, what needs to go right for the likes of HRE, and what could go wrong for HRE? Because we know the world's not in a bed of roses, right? We've had enough grey hairs in there to know that. But so what needs to go right, and what could go wrong?
What needs to go right is already what's going right. And that's the demand is surging, okay, for all the sorts of things we were talking about. So that's already going right. What is also going right is finally the Western world is awakening, and I'm saying outside of Japan here, who woke up to this 10 years ago in its support for Lynas, right, to get Lynas to where it is today, where essentially most of Lynas is rare earths. So I should say NdPr, TBDY goes to Japan, okay? Everything else kind of makes its way into China. So that's already going right insofar as the rest of the world waking up to the supply chain vulnerabilities that China represents in rare earths. And so there's a lot more incentive and real action being shown by Western governments in Europe, here in Australia, the US, Korea. Japan has already been showing that for the last 10 to 15 years, so you don't have to worry about the Japanese waking up about this. They know the rare earth sector, they know it very, very well. So that's happening, and that's helping all the rare earth players. The mere fact that investors are prepared to put money into the sector, which is what's been happening for the last 12 to 18 months, is a positive thing, because without that money, we're not going to get on and do our exploration to find the next generation of mines. So that's also a positive going on, okay? So there's investor awareness globally, including large investors. Hancock Mining, Fortescue have put money into rare earth projects, Hastings and Arafura, for example. So they're already getting busy in that sector as well. So it's bringing the right sort of money in. So that's all good. Little companies like ours, not yet. We've got to really show what we're capable of doing, but we're getting there. So they're all the things that are going right. Okay, what could go wrong? Well, that continuing control by the People's Republic of China, by the government of the People's Republic of China on the rare earths supply chain. The rest of the world is trying to break that down. It's very, very difficult because they've had 30 years to build the position that they are in today, and it's all around the production of magnets for electrification of transport and power sectors, right? That's really what we're talking about here. So to break that nexus, to break that control is an extremely difficult thing to do. It means that the Western world has got to build neodymium ion boron magnet production capacity outside of China, which is a real challenge. It's a real challenge. We can get a lot of supply into those projects, into magnet manufacturing, but the magnet manufacturing's got to be there. Otherwise, most of what we produce will end up in China, because that's where the end application is, the magnet application is. So I'd like to see more happen in that space, and there is some things happening in that space about magnet capacity outside of China, but the Chinese are working very hard to ensure that doesn't happen, because what they would like to see is more concentrates come into China. They've got spare refining capacity there, okay? It's all very, very controlled by the state. They encourage state-owned enterprises to compete against one another to keep costs down, and it's all about ensuring that the cost structure for the magnet manufacturers is as low as possible. So they don't want high input costs to that, such as high prices for rare earths. So there's control going on to keep rare earth prices down so it doesn't damage magnet manufacturing inside of China. So they invite as much concentrates to come in by not even putting them, by not even subjecting them to their internal quotas. So bring as much as you like in to continue to feed us so that we maintain control over that supply chain. That's where the main challenge remains for the rest of us. And keeping prices down is, of course, bad news for all of us, because we're relying on high prices, all of us are relying on high prices, to be able to bring forward an economic case for funding of our projects. So that's what's kind of going on there. That's the bad news, is that China maintains a real strong control over the supply chain, which the West is awakened to now, and the way in which they do it through value-added taxes, all sorts of ways, quotas and so on. I don't think the Chinese are going to cut rare earth supply off. I don't think that's going to happen. They will continue to maintain control in many other ways, to the detriment of projects being produced outside of China. Unless, of course, you want to put raw material supply into China, as is going on today from a bunch of mineral sands producers. Monazite's making its way to China from many parts of the world today. So that's, I think, the challenge that remains to be worked on, but at least we're awakened to that now, as distinct from 10 to 15 years ago when governments outside of China didn't even want to know about it, aside from Japan.